Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to another installment on Scholarly Talk on Life. I was, I also use, I was going to explain some of the masks that I use, and some of them I use like the little masks from here, and I usually get a lot of them during Christmas time because the Christmas season they come like five in a pack, and then this year they five in a pack for $10, $9, and then you can get them on sale. Buy one, get the other one half off, or sometimes 25% off. And this year it came with like this yes thing. It's a mat. It's a headband that you wear so that your mask doesn't get into your hair, and I wear that every single night, even if I don't use the yes mask. I like all of them, and the only thing I don't particularly care for is the one that has cucumber. I just don't like the smell of cucumbers, so I really don't use that. And but anyway, some of the things that I said that I was going to watch the Star Trek series on CBS, and I did, and I love it. But let me give you a little bit of a preface about like some of the problems I have. Like, so the Star Trek versus Star Wars debate is we know that goes on since they were both kind of, well, Star Trek is older than Star Wars, but Star Trek has always been, part of it is that one of my uncles, I used to watch Star Trek with him, and so as a kid, and so that has always had an affinity with me, but he never really explained like the lineage and kind of, he never gave background, so I just kind of watched it just to be, because it was, spending time with him was more important. So it's not to say that I don't understand it. It's just that the problem that I have with Star Trek, first off, the positives is that I think it's kind of cool because it's always been forward thinking, it's always been highly integrating, it's always been highly representative, so you never, which Star Wars was not. But the problem that I had with Star Trek is that there's so many different TV shows, different reboots, and because it always started off as a TV show series, and then the movies kind of came out of that, and then it made it, for me, it made it hard to try to keep up with trying to figure out what was what. And then after a while I just kind of started to not even care if it connected or not, and so I literally take everything that I watch of Star Wars, I take it as a new experience. Star Trek, I take Star Trek as a new experience, new interest, a nuance of separatism, even though I know there's some of the characters overlap. Okay. I'm not even concerned about connectivity to Star Trek, because it doesn't feel connected. So even though you may use the same characters' names, you may mention Spock's name, like even in this series, you've mentioned Spock's name. You have some of the same older characters from way back when, and to be frank, Patrick Stewart in my head is always going to be Xavier from X-Men. I'm sorry, I love me some Patrick Stewart as Xavier. To me, he's the much better Xavier than the new class. That's a whole different talk for a whole different day. Star Wars. It's not it's not that I dislike Star Wars, because I've watched it all. except Clone Wars. I haven't gotten into Clone Wars, and I know that that's maybe up on the list. I don't know. Star Wars. The problem that I have with Star Wars is that the whole root of Star Wars is connectivity, and it's supposed to be interconnected, and it's supposed to make a whole bunch of sense. And the problem I have with Star Wars is that the connection doesn't always make sense, and I'm so lost in some of the connection, and I have so many questions, and then they have contradictions, and the level of contradiction sometimes for me, because I'm a very detailed person, it doesn't work. And so I walk away with saying, this is okay, and then I also have a problem with the fact that Star Wars, the company, the whole franchise really takes for granted its followers. Like, they, with overcharging for everything. And I, like going to Star Wars Land, buy a beer for $100. It's like, you don't need $100 beer. Do you really need to take advantage of people this way? Like, so you can actually buy some of the drones and some of the characters for, you have to make reservations to buy it, and all the lightsaber, it can go up to like almost $1,000, even though I do think that personalization of a lightsaber is a cool idea. But some of this stuff, I just think that they've really taken advantage, and then they're really basing their whole brand on nostalgia. And you're hoping that this nostalgia has been passed on to generation, because the most recent movies have not all been that great to bring people to keep new interest. And I know that there's been a huge focus on trying to get little girls to be interested with The Last Jedi, and having The Last Jedi be a female, and those things, but and trying to grab their interest. But I'm gonna be honest, like, I don't know if it's because my daughter's too young, I'm not sure, but I know that she liked the fact of seeing a female as a lead character, but that wasn't enough to keep her glued in to become the follower of this. But I think that as a mom of a little girl, she is much more aware and much more vocal than I was at being interested in seeing girls take leads. Like, I didn't realize, I may have been interested in different things, like, female singers. I was much more into Janet than Michael. I was and still is a huge TLC fan. That was the first album I ever bought. So I know that in my own way, I was really interested in women being leads and taking charge and stuff like that. I just didn't necessarily see that. And I think, and so I didn't see that in the same way, and I didn't vocalize it in the same way that my daughter is doing. She's putting verbs to what she wants in different ways at such a younger age. And I think and I think that that's why Star Wars was kind of going in this direction. But unfortunately, it is forgetting the other population, like, the hardcore fans and the older people who thrive on connectivity, which is why the Marvel brand is a much better brand when it comes to connecting and treasuring the past and trying to bring more people into the future and different things like that. With all that being said, Star Trek CBS series, I think is well worth it. I know there's a season 2 coming this month, which I think is just awesome. And I think that it is well worth watching. This has the same level of quality that you would expect from the movies. I mean, the technology is just really there. The film quality is really there. It seems like they took great energy and great interest in making you realize that Star Trek is, their brand is nuanced technology, upgrading, and then also thinking about the ethics and safety of having all of these types of upgrades and all of these types of interaction with technology. And that's kind of where we're at with this show. And I think it is well worth the watch. The acting is superb. Some of you will find some of the actors and actresses are familiar. Some of one of the characters played in How to Get Away with Murder, so I thought that was really pleasant to see. And one of the upcoming main characters, I guess you could say, played in Salvation, which I really liked, and then stopped watching after season 2 just kind of got ridiculous, and so I stopped watching Salvation on CBS. And then I think it's kind of cool that you did bring back a lot of characters from different seasons of all these different Star Wars onto this show, and I think that's kind of cool. And I really love the flashbacks so that we can kind of get an understanding of how did we get here, because the show doesn't go back into time and then leads us into up where we are. It's kind of like, this is the problem that we're in. Do you know why we're here? Oh, you don't? You know, they all know something that we don't know. And so then the first 15 minutes of every show is almost like a flashback to kind of get us, to walk us to where we are. And so I think that that's a pretty cool concept, and it makes it not as a boring thing. And then you can understand. And another thing too, it doesn't make the viewer seem like they're idiots by saying, well, this is the year, and then present day, like, you know, back in the day, like those subtitles, those sub things that's trying to get people to go back and forth, they kind of get, they're letting you realize that clearly this is back in the day. I mean, and they give, you know, clues as to that one was back in the day or in present in the day. I will say though that it may be hard if you're just listening to this to realize what is current and what is in the past, because they do rely heavily on the visuals. But anyway, for you to kind of figure that stuff out. I do want to say this too. When you're watching it, you do need to take the time to watch it. This is not one of those shows that you can kind of pick up by glancing at it while you're doing other stuff. You do need to pay attention. It's a pay attention kind of a show. So if you don't have time to watch it, then don't watch it. And it's only 10 episodes. So and they're not even an hour. I mean, they're like between 37 to 45, maybe 50 minutes. And so that's a really easy watch. Easy and quick watch. Okay? With that, I will see you tomorrow. Insecure is on tonight, so I definitely will come back tomorrow to talk about Insecure. And I'm not sure if there's anything else to talk about, but I guess we shall see. Have a great afternoon, and I will see you tomorrow.